So I think the home builders in Florida are super desperate. And why I say they're super desperate is the incentives they're offering on new builds. Now, a lot of the times if you custom build a home, you won't be able to get the type of incentives that I'll talk about in a second. And the incentives are obviously closing costs covered, but they're also the rate buy down. So we ended up getting a lot lower rate than the market average because we bought a house that basically fell through in contract for the most part, that was built custom by somebody. They had it finished, they're getting ready to move in, and it fell through before closing. So Lennar bought us down to a 4.3% interest rate. They bought us down over an entire percent of the market value. So what we would have paid if we paid market rate for an interest rate on our house would have been about $1 million in total after 30 years. And now we'll be paying $600,000 if we stay for the 30-year duration. So the interest rate is huge. Like, they cover the closing costs. The builder pays the realtor's fee, which was like 20 grand in our, like 19,000 in our case. So they paid 19,000 to the realtor. They paid about 30,000 in incentives, give or take, on top of that. So you can take those incentives and get certain things, but we had the washers, dryers, and everything put in. But the big issue and like why it's all happening is because rates are staying like stagnant high. If rates were to go down, 2-4%, the market would pop off, and because it would make a mortgage cheaper than rent. The mortgage we have now is $1,700 a month, and that's on roughly a $400,000 house with putting minimal amount down, like 3.5%. If you were to put, if we put 20% down, it would have made it like $1,400 a month, but we ended up just keeping the cash around and just using it for investment purposes and just doing stuff around the house and making sure we have some money in case something happens. We didn't want to be house poor. So we made that decision, and we don't know if we want to stay here forever either. So that was another decision in it. But when we were first looking, the rates being 7%, the house that we're currently in, it would have been like $3,000 a month. And then you get all your taxes and fees on top of it. It would have been unlivable. It would have been way better to rent. But now that they're getting a little bit desperate and there's more inventory, there's more sellers than buyers. So the basic supply and demand has switched. So now it's harder to get a home now, but it's also, if you're shopping for a good deal and you feel like you could get a good deal, you can get one. Now, I don't have a lot of experience in real estate. I wasn't planning on buying a house relatively soon, but it made a lot of sense when I did it because of the rate. Because I'm gonna pay I think it's $212,000 in interest in total over the amortization schedule of the 30 years, which is the debt. But if you make an extra, if you just make an extra $300 a month at a mortgage payment, you can cut that off by 8 years. So I'm only gonna pay, I don't know what the exact math was while I'm driving, but it's $100-something thousand in interest over 30 years, and I'm willing to take a home off the market for that much. Excuse me, driving through these curves. I'm willing to take a home off the market and give them $100 grand in interest, because in 30 years I think the house will appreciate more than $100,000. So I think over the next 5 years we'll probably break even on the house. I don't think the prices are going to go up a lot, but if those rates come down, everyone in the world is going to go jump right back into, they're going to be trying to buy anything they can. So they do say marry the house and date the rate. Don't love the saying. I think the rate's more important. I think you fucking marry the rate, date the house. But if you get a high rate and they come down, you get a really good, you'll get a really good jump. Florida itself has cooled off a lot, so I don't know about other markets. I know other markets like in Illinois and New York are much different than Florida's markets. But Florida being the way it is, you could make probably 70 grand a year and get yourself qualified, maybe 80. You might need to make 80 grand a year and get yourself qualified for a really new, nice house. You don't even have to buy a used one. If you buy a used house, they're not going to pay a lot of those incentives because the sellers aren't budging. So new construction is a super good idea now, and people are oh, they don't build them like they used to. Okay, maybe they don't, but the house is still brick. And am I going to get a 20-year-old house for the same price as a house now? That house would be 40 years old by the time mine's 20. Plus, I get tons of warranties on it. So it didn't make a lot of sense to buy a used house. And the location was really good. So it was very surprising what we were able to mix around on, basic type salary. Now, depending on your risk tolerance, you can get what you want, but we went with a small house. And I just think in general, like, the builders have enough money to still like capitalize. And what I mean by that is like they can take small losses up front and get you those houses and sell those mortgage-backed securities. Like, those builders want to keep building and they want to keep monopolizing, so they're willing to take like some short-term pain, which is really cool because, like, I mean, it sucks for people like us, and even if people, so I said, I was like, man, if we buy a regular house in 10 years and the builders are still doing what they're doing now, we're not going to be able to sell it because we're going to have to offer 50 grand on top of the purchase price, basically. So anyways, long story short, the house could always be a rental. There's extra room, so that's one way to roll about it. But that's pretty much it. I just thought it was really cool what the builders are doing and like how they're navigating the high rates. They bought us down to a 4.3 from a 7%, so that's wild.